So it's always fun to get some eyeballs on the games from TheViper. I mean, God, this guy is like one of the top players in Age of Empires 2. Kind of the GOAT, really, in a lot of eyes, and is already just blitzing it after his performance in Genesis. So I thought it'd be fun to get some more Viper games, especially considering he's playing something a little bit off the cusp, a little bit different, some we don't get to see often, which is China. And he's going to be up against a hyper-aggressive faction. That's right, on the other side, playing France, we've got TheSniper, who is a French commentator, has a little bit of history as a player, but primarily as a French commentary worker. I thought this would be a fun one, because of course, as we all know, France needs no intro into the world of Age of Empires 4. It feels like, honestly, you could probably check a listing and see 50% of the games being blue or blue in terms of France or Mongols. So it'd be fun to see if Viper, you know, one of the top players in the game, can actually repel the ultra aggression we see out of France in the early phase of the game, and if he can find a way to boom. Because when you actually kind of break down what China does, when you think about the bonuses they get, economy-wise, you know, the things you can do around these dynasties, right? We can get the villager production time down. You can get these unique units like the Fire Lancers. They're amazing at burning buildings, by the way. I think it's like 30 damage from their torches they throw. And when you think about all these unique elements, China seems like it could be very strong. The problem right now is if you actually break down Age of Empires meta, the games are pretty much decided in, like, on the average, I'd say like 80%, 78% of games are decided in the first 20 minutes, right? And I think that is where China, so far from what we've seen, is always weak. They are weak source, right? So it's going to be interesting to see if Viper's found a way to kind of adjust them, make them relevant earlier on, and repel his opponents. Because I especially think the concept that Zhuge Nu, by going for Song Dynasty, instead of everyone just focusing Castle Age, instead going for the second few layers to get Zhuge Nu units, could potentially repel a lot of this early aggression outside of Knights. In this matchup, I don't expect it because, of course, Zhuge Nus, they're these, you know, rapid-firing crossbowmen that are ineffective against armor targets, and France, as we know, love to spam out those Knights. With that being said, could I see him pivot back after he gets a stable front line? Yes, just because France, as we know, likes to back up their Knight line with archers, and Zhuge Nu are meant to handle those archers fairly well. But we're kind of, you know, we're going the hypotheses, we're theorizing what the upcoming mid-game is going to look like, but I'm excited to see it. Already, we have got the Imperial Official out. For those that do not remember how this lad works, he has two different effects. You can put him on a building and he can make it more efficient. Or you can, I think it's if you put him on a military building, I believe it's 200% bonus production speed. And if you put him on like a mill, and those likes, it can be a 20% increase in what people drop off. So you'll see, drop that, get 12 instead of 10. And of course, over time, he can just grab this gold that's being generated because every drop-off generates gold. And that's kind of the unique mechanic I think a lot of people are trying to get their head around and find a way to min-max and optimize, right? Is what is the build order out of Town Center? When do you get extra Imperial officials? When it is a valuable use? How should you have these kind of, you know, rotations around gold? Like that also features into like how often do you need to get a new Imperial official? Like, would you like to have more gold coming in here by optimizing the building as well as the mill? Is it worth that extra 150 food? These small tweaks are details people are going to figure out. I think when you look at factions like Rust, where they have this unique, different way of getting their hands on gold, people have kind of clocked out how to play that on a basic level to make the faction function. It does also help they have early Knights, right? Like you go around, you hunt, get an early hunting cabin, spam out scouts, do it that way, then go into professional scouts, which we've seen is really powerful. But of course, you don't really have the option of getting a different building that builds an Imperial official as China until you get a second TC. Speaking of buildings, looks like it's going to be the Barbican of the Sun. I feel like almost always this is the go-to building to open up on, just because China as a faction does seem to spend the early game turtling a lot of the time. I'm not a fan of just, you know, kind of surrendering the idea that you can do something as China in the early game. I think the Palace Guards can especially be pretty lethal if you can get to them quickly, but definitely in this matchup, it's the right call just because you are up against France. We talked about this before plenty of times. This faction is probably the most aggressive faction in the game, just because they get access to those Knights so quickly, which they're going to soon. He is behind on the tech up, by the way. That is a highlightable difference here. And of course, that means, you know, what is your counter if you did try and play aggressive in the second age of China, right? Like, you're going to get some spears to defend the choke points, but outside that, you don't really have the cavalry potency that your opponent does. And the other kind of knock-on effect this causes, right, is France will be able to play a lot looser with their economy. They don't have to be as worried about being, you know, ganked and raided. And that's why I wouldn't even expect to see an outpost protecting this line here that Sniper has, right? This is one of the benefits when you play against these static force nations in the fuel age. You don't actually have to burn all that extra wood on building outposts to protect your earnings, right? Sniper finally making it up. Scout-wise, how is the info looking in this game? So Viper doesn't know what's happening in the center, wrap around. So info on base. Viper did get info early on his opponent. So eyeball is pretty similar. They both have a feeling of the layout of the map. I wouldn't be surprised if they both play to the south side just in case it comes down to, grabbing these relics, getting that extra gold treacle. Of course, neither of these have any extra beneficial elements to their religion, right? It's not like Rust with their warrior monks that move super fast, or HRE where they get bonus gold on top of the gold they get from treacle via the Regnitz Cathedral. But it's a factor to consider. And second TC coming out from France. Interesting. Mirrored as well by Viper. Viper is behind, but remember, China does build fairly fast, so it won't be as drastic of a difference as it would be for other factions. But this is interesting, right? How often do we see France go for a second TC? It's quite rare, in my opinion. Most of the time, we see these players just aggress off of one TC, just funnel in with a few knights backed up by some archers, and then try and pressure their opponent into a submission, right? I think the reason he's not doing that is his early scouting gave info on the Barbican and the Sun. And also, when you look at these areas, there's clear choke points, right? So I think if you were to try and all in on a super early siege of France here, it could fairly easily be repelled by China. They could just put down some extra static defenses. It would be really annoying for them, but they would survive and thrive because they'd have a second TC while you still be functioning off one. So I just like this choice to delay the aggression from Sniper. Because remember, France do have certain eco bonuses of their own, right? When you consider that they produce villagers quicker. So until you get to this point where you've got the villager production time reduction from building both your fuel age buildings on China, you won't be able to beat France's production rate of villagers on an equal amount of TCs. I think said... I haven't sent any military units. Like, okay, here we go. Yeah. So just sticking them in the back of his base. So there's a few spearmen coming out. He's anticipating there might be some early harassment. But the scout is moving in. Oh, wow. Yeah, I was about to say, there is 0 knights. So there's 0 intention from Sniper. This is such a different way to play France, and it's kind of caught Viper off guard a little bit here. Right, you can already see that now he got a little bit of info on the base, but he couldn't spot this back TC unless he wraps all the way around. This means that now eco advantages with Sniper. And although they both sound familiar, both of them are also playing familiarly, right? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a trip TC drop out of Viper, but what might waylay that choice is if he's worried that he's going to be aggressed by his opponent, right? If he gets paranoid, like, oh, maybe he's bringing knights over soon, I haven't scouted both sides of the map, it might cause him to hunker down and invest in a few extra spears, but I like that he's just stopped at 2 at the moment. He's like, okay, show you a hand before I invest more. And yeah, Mills expanded out. Just very greedy expansion lines, right? Knowing that he's up against, as we said, a faction that doesn't have the mobility to punish you for this sort of loose economy early on. Man, this is such a different way to play France. I think it's a case of you can against China. I'm just like, at the same time, I'm like, should you against China, right? Like, in theory, yes, because like they're not going to get harassy with you early on. And also the Barbican style can make it hard for you to get harassy with them. But I do feel like there's maybe a missed opportunity to try to get in there and just maybe cause some frustrations for Viper. Like, even just investing in 2 or 3 knights to just get that info initially. But the Sniper, I don't know if this is just him giving vast amounts of respect to Viper, or if it's just him theory crafting that if he mirror matches like the potential TC booming, he'll always be ahead. And Wall's coming up. So just trying to prevent any sort of flanking maneuvers. I like this move from Viper. You don't really have to wall the south side because you've got the Barbican and the Sun, and you can keep a few spearmen posted here. And that will give you room to expand as well, remember. You could even set up a trade route if you want. I don't necessarily expect to see it, but marketplace usage on this map is pretty feasible, right? If you wall both choke points, you can run a caravan cross map. And remember, the way it works is it's based on distance covered. It's exponential. It's not just an additive. So, for example, if it's 2 times the distance, like if you change your marketplace location to be 2 times the difference, you wouldn't get 2 times the gold. You'd actually get a little bit more than that. But yeah, I don't think we often see markets get utilized in 1v1s. I think the exceptions may be Mongols on things like Boulder Bay. There are other maps as well, but Boulder Bay usually comes to mind because of that amazing game with to the GL boys that, in fairness, in that in those type of situations, Border Bay is a great example of a map that it works on because, of course, you're dealing with choke points, right? So it's easy to defend your caravan routes. But this could be a map that we see in the future, players just investing heavily into caravan lines. It just becomes a very risky investment, right? Unless you've stonewalled up and you've got military force defending both sides. I usually, in that regard, see marketplace use with caravans as more of a late game play than an early game play, just for that reason. We'll have to see. Marketplace is going down. This could just be for trading because Vipe has a pretty big surplus of food right now. At the same time, it could be that he just starts spamming caravans and that's why he walled here. So caravan down. Oh, let's get marked down. Will he go for the traders? Not yet. So we'll just go with a strong, safe anticipation that he won't. Nice sniper out on the expansion, by the way. I think the Villies got away for sniper. I want to say they got away. So he's 70 eco, 57. I feel like he maybe lost 1 or 2 and the rest got away here. But yeah, that's going to be the mills burnt down. He couldn't actually get much of this deer line before losing it. And just a little bit of early aggression. I'd like to see this out of Viper. It's forced a pivot reaction from Sniper, right? He started to build into these Knights. These Knights, of course, will trade favorably in equal numbers. And this should be where Viper gets the vital information, spotting out his opponent has trip ecoed, right? And it's already teching up. I mean, if he didn't get the info on the TC, he's going to get the info another way soon, because the guild hall is almost complete for Sniper. Meanwhile, has Viper begun his tech? Yeah. So he went back for the tech too. I really like this play. I think rushing into Castle Age, panicking about your opponent being Castle Age and saying, I need Castle Age as well, is just, it's a false positive, right? You bait yourself into a losing situation here. So the fact that Viper instead has chosen to go back for this now means that on a double TC, he's going to produce villages at a ridiculous rate, right? It's going to, yeah, 13 seconds each compared to now 16 seconds each Villi. But keep in mind, Sniper already has 3 TCs, so he's getting close to like the threshold of how much eco he wants in the first place, right? So it's diminishing returns now to think about this free TC versus Song Dynasty achieved. I think there's definitely more value in what Viper has done here. It also means, by the way, more gold getting generated. Look at this. All right, calm down. Someone might want to, I don't know, extract that gold soon, my friends. As I just love the, I love the way they just craftily put their hands together, like, yes, more gold out of nowhere. This one here, this one won't do it. But yes, another imp official coming out. Where's he going to stick this one? Maybe another mill? And keep in mind, by the way, his imp palace is also there. So like his tech time was really impressive. Like the fact that Viper covered both tech 2 and tech 3 at the same time, you gotta take your hats off that, really. You gotta respect that. So now with the Imperial Palace up, remember this thing allows him to spot all the villages. And this is where the game gets a little bit scary for Sniper playing a loose economy. If he starts to spread out, if he starts to split up his workers, they're going to get sniped quite easily by a small contingent from Viper because he'll be able to get eyeballs on them at a regular basis, right? It's like 120-second cooldown. And usually, like, it sounds like a long time, but when you think about what workers are doing, usually it'll let you know where they're going to be for the next few minutes if they're out at, like, a deer line, for example. Chivalry also researched on these Knights, and it looks like there was enough Spearmen out. So Viper, he has the only choke point that can be accessed into his base covered. Like, you could try running under the Barbican of the Sun, but, I mean, you're going to get barbecued by a Sun if you do that. So he'll just back out completely. Forward outpost as well. So Viper just trying to maintain vision in this mid area. He wants to get early eyeballs on any sort of assault towards his north side. Because remember, his north side is fairly exposed, right? He's used this as an eco expansion point with a weak defense. So having an outpost here, that gives you an extra 10-15 seconds of kind of heads up on any threat that's coming. Also, give him eyeballs on the palisade walls, right? So he'll know if his opponent even has a gate there, which is just even more info to give him time to react. Vision, folks. Always invest in vision. It's why this is actually a pretty impressive thing he's done here. You see what I'm seeing, guys? This is really cool. So small things you can do with terrain. Terrain, of course, I don't think it affects combat as far as I've seen and as far as I've been able to research into so far. But what it does do is it gives you a vision advantage, right? People can't see uphill. And this is such a big brain, small detail that Viper done. Look at the vision he's had on this edge here. He sees his opponent going up to imp at this stage because this scout has literally just been sitting here on the high ground, like one of those goats climbing dams to lick the side of them. For anyone who's seen those videos, it's really scary. So, I can't remember. It begins with an A, the type of sheep or goat is. But he's just up there. No one knows he's there. He's just snitching information back to the base all the time, and there you go. Tech up complete, but Viper already had the heads-up info. He knew about this before it was even being constructed. Or as it was being constructed, rather. And all the while, Viper, he's just hoarding up. He's about to have enough to go for his own tech up. I don't think he's going to stay in Castle Age to get this, the Villager official military units, gain the speed. I think instead he'll go up to Imp and then come back to the Yuan Dynasty, because the percentage speed is nice in the late game, but right now you just need to make sure you got quality to match quality. Right now he's got loads of spearmen. This could trap Sniper if he's... Oh, no, Sniper! Uh-oh, that's one of the horses gone. And he's going to run them into this choke point where there's 2 more spears waiting, so he should be able to box him in and stab another one of these knights down. Movement in, stab once. He can't get the other hit, though. Viper's not watching it. I think Viper's too busy on the front line, yeah. So he's been scouting out. He moved this scout finally because it's got all the info it needed to. He sees the hand cannoneers. It's just so much value out of one scout, right? The initial info on any sort of assault out the base, the info about the tech up to Imp, and then also just getting the additional info where he just sees the new forward archery range line going up. That being said, these knights were frustrating in his own base. Finally will be dealt with. So gets rid of the tiny assault force, but now you got to anticipate something bigger is going to be coming right in the future. And it's going to be the royal cannons. The big boomers. Meanwhile in the center, Siege Workshop's of his own. He's already going to spring. I love this. Like, he saw the Siege Workshop, right? He saw the tech up. It was the College of Artillery. So in Viper's mind, he's not as concerned about getting his nest of bees out as he is about countering what his opponent is going to want to do, which is going to be cannons. It's going to be any sort of hard-hitting, long-range siege, right? Whether it's Republicans or these normie cannons. So he's going to have a line of Springles. And we've seen how especially effective Springles can be in high-level AoE games, right? Like, I think Springles right now are probably too strong. They're going to need some sort of nerf. I'm not really sure 100% what I'd say the nerf is. I don't think it's necessarily tower range. I don't know if it's mobility either. Maybe health? I don't know. It might. I don't think the stats are the problem. I do think maybe the cost needs to be changed. But I think we talked about this in the previous videos. Like Mangonels, like compare the cost of Mangonels and Springles actually, it seems kind of balanced where Springles are at. But when you get down to the dirt of it, right? When you get down in the numbers, when you actually look at how many of these late game scenarios are decided by Springles, something has got to give. Someone's got to be tweaked. I think one of the things I suggest is maybe a pop cap increase, but if you increase it from 3 to 4, you'd have to do that with all artillery units across the board, and that's the problem. So cannons just trying to break out, because remember, Viper did sneak in these stone walls on both sides, by the way. And these are bulky walls. But cannons will break through them quickly. Defensive keep going down, but this isn't just defensive. Remember, whenever you play as France, it's also about the economy benefits, because now these stables and these archery ranges, your units cost 20% less to produce. Really big chunk of savings there. Keeps from the Chinese side, however, on the center already. Hasn't put one in the north, but oh my, whoa, okay, get more gold than China, I dare you. Get more farm than China, folks, I dare you. Because right now he's got 9 on this vein. He's got 8 on this vein, and he's got 6 on this vein. Just so smart from Viper, understanding what this map is really about. I feel like too often people stagnate, they don't arrive in the center quick enough, but these quick expansions from his main base by Viper is giving him an edge here. And we can see it very clearly if we look at income per minute. And this is going to really come in handy as he goes back for the previous Dynasty's buildings, right? Because he's still sitting on just the Song Dynasty. I think the reason is, like, remember, if I recall correctly, you lose the previous Dynasty's bonus, right? So you move on from them, is the way it works. So for him, he wants to get his eco up to full scratch, which is now at 110. And this should be where he starts to tech up to get into the, like, for example, the Yuan Dynasty or the Ming Dynasty. Which I would love to see Yuan Dynasty. The astronomical clock tower in itself is worth it. And yeah, there it is, going up now. The Great Wall Gatehouse is... it's not terrible, but I think it's less valuable unless you plan to get on these walls quick enough, which now that France is showing like this at your siege walls, you probably aren't trying to play around some sort of cheesy wall strategy as China. I think he'll probably stay just in the Yuan Dynasty. I think especially the Yuan Dynasty's bonuses vastly are superior to the Ming Dynasty's bonuses from a spring-old and siege weapon perspective, right? So we'll have to see if that's where he opts to go. And he is going straight into the bombards, so I think he stopped at 1 spring-old and that was it. But remember, bombards are actually decent at dealing with other siege units, right? They boom them down fairly well. Of course, the reason most people go for Springles is they're more cost-effective. As you can see there, right? Like, the resource investment is a hefty amount. Is 2.5 times the amount that you have to invest for a Springles. Cannons now here, trying to get rid of those siege workshops before more units come out. And remember, Viper's army is fairly static, right? So if he goes in, he has to be able to get in fully. And the problem he has right now is Sniper, living up to his name, has gone for the rifles, right? He's got his hand cannoneers here, ready to play. I wonder if he starts to kind of diversify into maybe a cavalry army? But we'll have to see. In the meantime, he's going to be able to snipe out that Royal Cannon that was going for the outpost. That's pricey. Royal Cannons, remember, they have a hefty lump sum on themselves. Costing the 1,000 resources we were talking about. So back up with his cannons, and this is where Sniper is now trying to get onto the center veins, right? But this feels a little bit too late, and you can already see who's being punished for trying it. Instead, Sniper now has to come up with some sort of flex strategy, right? I would love to see maybe a few... Ooh, what do we go for here? Like, I think you need some sort of front line. I don't know if you go for Arbors in this situation. Knights would be out of the question if you knew about these spears, but I don't think he spotted these spears yet. So I think right now, Sniper is just being completely kind of counted out on the... on the composition front, right? So I think France needs another solution. What that's going to be is a big question mark in my mind at the moment. You could go for Arbors, but like I said, your opponent isn't building into armored units, right? It's just a composition of archers and spearmen you're dealing with right now. So possibly... I mean, you need someone to get on these bombards. This is the big problem, right? I think you need a small contingent of horsemen, or Viper is just going to laugh in your face in these fights every time. Because he has superior cannon numbers right now, and he has the high ground, so you should have the vision advantage to snipe you out before you can react 9 times out of 10. So, when I'm talking about what Sniper needs to do, I get a bad taste in my mouth when I'm about to say it, right? It's like man-at-arms, possibly. The reason I get a bad taste in my mouth is because I've talked about this time and time again. France is one of those factions that rarely ever builds barracks. And you want to play into your strengths. Your eco strength comes from archery ranges of stables, right? And in some ways, that limits you more than it limits Viper in the late game. And Viper, just with his composition, has identified that fully and counted out both types of units you'd really spam into. That's why these hand cannoneers also like don't get the greatest of value, right? Is they have shorter range than the archers, and they also don't get bonus damage. Like their bonus damage doesn't necessarily matter. They do hit harder, don't get me wrong, but usually you pick up a hand cannon in your line to deal with these more elite units, just burst through them quickly. If you're just being zerged by cheap cannon fodder, which is what Viper intends to do here, then you actually kind of feel frustrated to have spammed this many hand cannoneers. But I say that Sniper really is just in for it all at this point, right? He's not looking for the check raise. He's not looking for the 4-bet. He's just looking for the all-in here as he continues to spam only exclusively hand cannoneers, or as I like to call them, baby cannons, and then the big cannons alongside them. Culverin now out. Remember, the Culverin has a lot of range, 12 tower range. No Springles here anymore. But I think the issue you have is if you're playing into an artillery situation as China against France, I think France loses. And it's because of this clockwork tower, right? Like, we just saw this, right? 3 of these are from clock tower bombards. Look at the health on these, right? Up at 864. Trying to break through those, you're going to die. You're going to actually lose. If you have an equal number of raw Culverins to bombards, you'll always lose your Culverins, maybe kill 1 or 2 of the bombards. So it's a bit problematic. And I think Viper, I don't know if he's identified this, or not Viper, sorry. I don't know if Snipper has like identified this or if he's just double downing stubbornly, because nothing has changed, right? It's just all the same. And I think this is about to end very soon because Viper, you know, he's pop capped, right? He has to make move. He's got plenty of eco to spend afterwards, so he starts to move in. And he'll slow siege this because he has 5 bombards. And there's no way in hell that France can match this right now. And look, it's just these high-quality units, well, great. They do loads of damage if they can get close enough. They're never going to get close enough, right? Because the vision advantage is there for Viper. And also, he has this range advantage. And you're talking about a very static moving unit, right? 1.12. Remember, these units that have been built by France here, these hand cannoneers, they move just as slowly as longbowmen. They have the same kind of weakness that longbowmen have, except unlike longbowmen, they don't actually benefit from additional range. It's just they hit very hard if they can reach you. Problem he's having, he's never getting a chance to reach him. instead. Archery range spam continues. I wonder if he goes for Grenadiers. Grenadiers seem like a cool kind of counter. I don't think he needs them, though. Charge in. That's the frustration coming out right now from France. He moves in, trying to snipe him out. It's going to take him down one by one, but even if he gets some more, it's going to cost him his entire army here, as they will be slow to retreat. They can easily be chased down by these spearmen that have 1.25 movement per tile. Culverin trying to move in, but 3 bombards against Culverin, plus the spearmen in there. Mistakes being made. The wraparound's going to come in, and Viper, that's going to be the army of France just completely wiped. He completely takes control of this game. And I think that just might be enough to tap him out. I mean, he has to know he's beaten. He hasn't got any sort of strategy to dive into. No, there we go. GG. Really well played by Viper. Great moves into this center coming out from him early to utilize all that gold. And I think that was the big difference here. Sniper didn't really move for those central veins quickly. He also didn't harass early. He tried to play into this eco boom, which is a cool concept. But if you have no better compositional ideas than I'm going to have artillery plus 1 unit, then you're going to get counted out by this very basic, very cheap force that we saw invested in by Viper. So I really love the way Viper played that. He knew he didn't have to go for quality, because if he went for quality, then he potentially loses the game, because he's having to invest in this army he doesn't have the eco to support, and they're getting sniped out by hand cannoneers. But that's your answer, folks. The solution to when you're going up against hand cannoneers, just build crap units. Loads of crap units and throw them at them. It sounds so trivial, it sounds so childish, it sounds so stupid, but it really does work.